So today we're going to talk about some of the checklists that are available in the back of this book. The reason why I threw them in is because I'm a fanatic for checklists. I just feel like the more that you can automate things in your life, the easier it is. And I tend to do better when things are very organized and just set up for me, and I tend to not do as well when they're not. So I really make a practice of having checklists across my life, or templated language that will cover stuff for my clients or for my tenants, that just let them know all the time this is the expectation. And usually the way I build out those checklists also too is through experience. So as you get renters in, or as you have clients and you realize, okay, this is a pattern, or this is information that was missed that would have been useful to share, I just throw that into existing templates and build off of that. Before I get into it though too, I think the other advantage to it is just automation and feeling comfortable with the idea of being a landlord. I know with a lot of my clients, they held off on purchasing real estate rentals or becoming a landlord for a long time because they felt like tenants, they didn't, they've heard all these nightmares about being a landlord, like the midnight call on the plumbing and you got to figure something out, or the tenant that moves 4 dogs in and wrecks the place. That has not been my experience. I think that with some of our tenants, we've had miscommunication sometimes, or we felt like maybe people had unrealistic expectations, but I have never had anyone trash a place. I have never had a major expense, knock on wood. But in general, it's just communication and just making sure like everybody's aligned and that they know why. They know what you expect and you know what they expect. So I would say, I haven't had a bad experience, and I always ask my clients too, because I feel like this is such a common thing where people kind of avoid becoming a landlord, or they have a curiosity about it, but they also have a real fear because they've heard about all these nightmare experiences. So I always ask people that have tenants, whether they're, seasoned investors that are coming back, or if they're first time clients of ours that invest and then they're a year out, it's like, how's it going? Has anyone had any damage? Are you enjoying being a landlord? Is it a headache, or has it worked out for you? And everybody, I can't think of a client off the top of my head that's had like a really bad experience. Professionally, I know someone that tried to give someone a break, and I think she lost a month's worth of rent because that didn't really work out. But in general, I don't know anyone that has had any kind of catastrophic financial situation, and that just also hasn't been my experience. Another tip on this I will tell you, and I think it's part of the reason why we've had good luck, and this is something, if you consume any of our other content, you'll know we talk about this all the time, is when you post your listing and you have potential tenants coming in, how are they communicating with you? Because if they're poor communicators and they take a long time to get back to you, or the way they communicate doesn't really make sense, or there's just something off, don't run to that person. Listen to yourself. I always feel like the way that a potential tenant or professional partner or client communicates is the best predictor of how they're going to be and how I'm going to like my interaction with them. And I feel like I'm pretty specific in how I like to communicate. I really like to be over communicated with. I really like to know, even if you have to tell me like, hey, I'm not going to know anything, or I'm not going to have that information for 48 hours or whatever, that just sets me at ease. Then I don't have to worry about it. I don't know. I have an expectation of when the information is coming or what the holdup is with the information. So I try to provide that to people, and then it's also something that I like when people are trying to come in. So like if you have someone and they're like, hey, I'm going to fill out the app, and then they don't do it for 2 weeks, it's kind of like, well, that's weird. You seem like you're in a big rush, and then it's 2 weeks later, versus someone that says, I'm going to fill out that app, I'm going to try to get to it this weekend. I'll let you know if something changes. To me, that's a stronger prospect because they're kind of staying in front of you and letting you know what's going on. Okay, so communication, being a landlord, it's not that scary. Automation helps with it. So I put checklists in the back of this book. I may have already said this, but I put checklists in the back of this book to help with the automation of the process, and so that when you're thinking about doing medium-term rental, you can think about what you should be providing for your guests. So first things first, I think, we'll talk about the Furnished Finder intake. So You have posted your property on Furnished Finder. You've posted your property on Furnished Finder, and then someone is responding to you. So first things first is a timely email response. I think I'm beating that one to death, but I would say respond within 24 hours. Because I do hear, part of the reason why I like Furnished Finders more is because it's a less sophisticated platform and you have less competition. And so I think people that are renting on Furnished Finders often are trying to communicate with people that don't respond to them or maybe aren't as serious. So if you get back to them in 24 hours, you write an email with good grammar that makes sense and everything, I think that it sets you apart and people are going to be interested in working with you. So a timely email response, I would say within 24 hours. Okay. Second thing, question about what else you can answer from them or next steps. So they're going to come in and say, hey, I like this property. Sometimes they ask for a deal if they're going to rent longer, or they have a question about a dog or the location. So usually they're like reaching out to see if it's available, and then they might have another level of questions. So I just try and answer that, and then I always answer the email with like, let's keep this going. What else do you need me to answer? And if you don't need anything else answered, I can tell you about like the next steps in the process. So like it's giving them information to get to the next step. Okay, so let's say that they want to move forward. So then at that point, you're going to do a background check, a credit check, and then sometimes I ask for people's social accounts, either LinkedIn or Facebook, and I have them become friends with me so that, again, there's a little bit more skin in the game for them so that if they did flake on a lease or something, I'm attached to them or like, I don't know, could reach out to someone in their lives. I just feel like they take it a little bit more seriously, and again, you have a little bit better understanding of who they are. The background check and the credit check, you can have Zillow do it, apartments.com can do it. There's some really good sources for that. And I think when we do it through Zillow, it forces the tenant to pay for it. You don't pay for it. You just send them a link where they have to fill it out and then you get the report back. The benefit to this for the tenant too, though, is that if they don't end up working out with you, Zillow then has it and can share it with anyone. So they only have to pay for it once, unlike the old days where you would have to pay for it for every apartment or whatever you wanted to rent. Okay, and so this is for medium-term rentals. So we definitely do the background and credit checks on the medium-term rentals as well. Okay, so then if you're doing it on Furnished Finder, unlike Airbnb, so Airbnb handles, they have insurance, although you should get additional insurance on it, but they handle the insurance, they handle the lease, etc. Furnished Finder doesn't have any of that. So you pay $99 versus the 3% that you pay in Airbnb. But Furnished Finder, then it's just a platform for introducing you to that client, but they don't handle anything. So you then have to put a lease on them. There's lots of lease products that you can pull. If you don't have one, if you want to reach out to me, I'm happy to share the lease that we put our medium-term renters on. We can give that to you, give it to you as the template, and then you can modify it. But you have to put them on a lease. And usually for people, when I share the lease, when we're at that point, I say, you have up to 7 days to ask me questions or respond to this lease, or sign this lease. And then after that, I'll just assume you're not interested. Again, I don't want it lingering. I want to know that that person's committed. They're not looking at like 4 other properties. I want it secured pretty quickly. So I send them the lease, I tell them they have a week to do it, and then usually I give them like a week or 2 to put down the deposit as well for the exact same reason. Like I want to know that they're going to come in, they're going to have the money, and they're serious about it. And a note on that, I do not give them the keys until I have the first month's rent, just because I don't want someone to come in and, we've had a few people sometimes where it kind of seems like maybe they had buyer's remorse, like they found a cuter place before they even got to our place or something. And so that happened to us twice in a place in Denver. And so you just want to kind of secure that and make sure that they're taking it seriously as well. And also the rule of thumb on that, and it's actually the law here in Colorado, is that if someone flakes on you after they've signed the lease and they're in the property, you can keep a certain amount of money from them, but you have a responsibility as the landlord to not incur unnecessary damage to you or to the tenant. So you have to seek out new renters quickly and then hopefully come to some kind of fair resolution between the two parties. So I'm getting a little off topic, but it is important. So I put them on an official lease always, because I think that also protects you from squatters' laws, which hit 30 days or more. Okay. Deposit, just covered that. Cancellation policy, so when they can cancel, how much it'll cost them. Usually we do 1 month's rent for cancellation, just because you have to, the way you want to do it is you're just kind of trying to cover your tracks for how long it's going to take you to get a new renter in. And again, if you get somebody in 2 days later, then try and work with the tenant and do something fair where you get a little and they get a little money. It's not actually supposed to be a punitive thing. It's just trying to help you cover your costs. Okay, so cancellation policy, timeline for completed lease and deposit, I just covered that. And then welcome materials. So after they've signed the lease, sometimes leases are really boring and there's lots to them. So I usually just write a separate document that again is kind of a checklist of what to expect. And that checklist will cover like Wi-Fi, door codes, if there's a shed code, if there is, you know, for our condos, there's a code for the laundry room, there's a code for the gym, there's a code for the main building, etc. So I just dump all of that into a separate welcome document so that they're not having to comb through the lease. The parking space number, all of that, and put it in. Whether or not you give that to them before you get first month's rent is a different question. Sometimes with that welcome document, I will take out certain information like how to access the house until I have that first month's rent before I give it to them. So that is my checklist for the Furnished Finder intake. Let's do a checklist for the lease now as well. Okay, so for your lease, it should include the price, the length of the stay. If the property is under an LLC, which it should be, because that helps protect your assets, the lease is between the tenant and the LLC. So write the lease as the LLC. You can kind of say, you know, your name's now known or doing business as blah, 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 LLC, and then write the lease in that way. I'm not a lawyer. Do not seek out legal advice, etc. I'm just telling you, you should seek out advice. You should not seek out advice. But I'm just telling you how we do it. Okay, so proper notice for entering. So when they can enter, you know, when the place will be available for them. And also proper notice for when you are going to enter. So is it a 24-hour time period? Is it in a certain timeline? Can they be there when you're entering, etc. A proper notice for if and when they want to renew. So we always make people do 45 days just because it's a medium-term lease again. So we want plenty of time to have it out on the market. You know, so we usually ask for 45 days, but if, you know, if it came down to 28 days and we hadn't rented it out and they'd been a great tenant and they wanted to renew, that obviously wouldn't be a problem. We do a non-refundable cleaning fee depending on the size of the house, depends on, or the property, depends on the fee. So right now we have a 4.2 in Colorado Springs and we charge $400, non-refundable. Also too, if they're gonna bring in pets, you're going to want to make that cleaning fee higher or tack on an additional cleaning fee for the pet. Okay, how they should pay. I have all my clients pay me through Venmo. So I write that in the lease and it's like, this is how you do it. If they ask to use Zelle and stuff, I'm usually like, no, like, let's do Venmo, unless they have some really strong objection to it. It's how I've been tracking it. I like it, it's easier. And I have them do it private. I don't want all my friends and family knowing about it, but I have them do Venmo and I set it to private. Okay, who's responsible for maintenance? So this is something where it will kind of help you avoid that nightmare situation that everyone's afraid of, the midnight plumbing issue, is that for our clients, I have the lease set up where they have to schedule their own plumbers, etc., for anything that's less than $500. And they have to pay the first 10% of whatever it is, so that way they're not just pulling in anyone for anything, and that they have some skin in the game and are worried about the price as well. And they can do that 3 times depending on the length of the lease. The leases that we've been doing in Colorado Springs have been a year for medium-term rentals or furnished rentals. And so we would say 3 years for that. $500, just send us the bill, we'll take care of it. After, if they are doing more than 3 or there's some big issue, then we want to be involved in it and potentially bring in our own professionals. Or like last year, the stove quit, so we took care of that, and like we picked the stove and we picked the professionals that came out and did it. But if it's small stuff, I really want them scheduling it and dealing with it. It's not fun to play telephone between the professional you're trying to schedule with, the tenant, and you. It just creates a lot of complications that don't need to be there, and you can make it so that they have to do it. So that's how I handle that. Okay, responsibility and expectations around yard work. So, do you charge them more and have someone else come in and weed and do the landscaping if you have a yard, or do they agree to that and then you kind of check on it and they periodically take care of it and they pay less in their rent? Same thing for snow shoveling. Okay, and a timeline. So I tell my clients, like, the snow has to be off the sidewalk by 10 a.m. Okay, subleasing, whether or not they're allowed to sublease for Airbnb, or sometimes we rent to college kids, so like if somebody leaves, can somebody else come in? Do they need to check with us first, etc.? And no, they cannot Airbnb. And yes, we would let them sublease to someone else, but we want to run a credit check on them, or if they're college kids, maybe have their parents co-sign, etc. Okay, guess when you would need to be notified if someone is staying who is not on the lease. So this can be, again, an issue if there's boyfriends or girlfriends. So you just want to be really clear with them on what's appropriate, because it actually creates a lot of tenant issues within the community of renters. And so just setting that up really clear from the beginning will help you. I used to say list of your furniture and items. But now I hold off on that because people were getting very, very specific with it. And it's like, I don't know if the pan walked off. I'm not too worried about it. So we just leave that alone, but we tell them to video the furniture and everything within 72 hours when they get in, so that we can know how things are affected. Oh, and that's the final one, video documentation of the property. So send us a video so that we know exactly what it looks like. And then we will agree, okay, at the end, this has a mark, or this is fine, or this is how it looked when you sent us the video. Okay, so that's it. It's American Nomads, Erin Spradlin. You can find it on Amazon. If you have questions, drop them in the chat or the notes, the messages below. Drop them in there. And if you want more content like this, we obviously have other videos. You can find our website at Erin and James Real Estate. And also we have a podcast if you like to consume content that way. All right, thanks.